A very good morning to you. Welcome to Business Morning. Today, I am Bisi Adebayo. We're starting with oil prices now, which are down today as over-mountain supply returned to the fore after leading producers delayed talks on the 2021 output policy that could extend cuts as the coronavirus pandemic continues to sap fuel demand. Brent crude was down 0.77% at $47.51 a barrel in early trade, while U.S. WTI shared 0.75% at $45 a barrel. Now, both contracts surged around 27% in November after COVID-19 vaccine developments raised hopes of an economic recovery that could boost fuel demand. Well, OPEC Plus has delayed talks on output policy for next year until Thursday, as key players still disagreed on how much oil they should pump amid weak demand. The group had been scheduled to hold its meeting on Tuesday after discussions of key ministers on Sunday failed to reach a consensus. And back home now, the federal government under the Olusegun Obasanjo administration in 2006 conceived the standard gauge modernization project for the country in a bid to achieve a holistic development in the transportation system. But 14 years down the line, that project is yet to be completed, with subsequent governments reviewing contract agreements due to paucity of funds. Among these railway projects connecting the 6 geopolitical zones is the Abuja-Kaduna Rail Line project, which commenced full commercial operation in July 2016. Well, I'm being joined now by the Managing Director of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, Fides Ohiria, to discuss the issues affecting the economic viability of all the rail projects in the country. And he's right here with us in the studio. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to December.
Well, welcome to December. This is the last month of the year 2020. Now, let's begin with you giving us details of the entire railway projects being embarked on by the federal government and the level of progress so far.
As you rightly said, the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, commissioned and gave out a contract for the Lagos to Kano standard gauge line, but they could not start. And when Yaradua came in, it resulted to segmentation and started looking for funds because there was not enough funds to finance the contract. And they took up from Abuja to Kaduna, a 186-kilometer length of track. They started, and by the time the present government came in 2016, they ensured that it's completed. Rolling stock brought in and commenced operation in July 2016. So far, so good. And while doing that, in 2017 or thereabout, the Lagos to Ibadan construction idea came in for that segment, and it started. And right now, as we speak, the track from the Ebutimeta Junction to Moniya in Ibadan, double line, completed. The portion which was later added when the government came in, because they are insisting that the policy is that all rail line must hit the seaport or the dry port so that you avoid double handling. So they are promising that middle of January, we should be able to get into the port and be able to play in part on the congestion of the upper side of Lagos. We are also hoping to start a partial commercial operation next Monday, 7th of December, so that Nigerians can benefit and save life during that December rush. So we are hoping to start from Ibadan in the morning, 7 a.m. to Lagos, and at 4 p.m. to Ibadan. And by the time we commission in January, we are going to have 16 return trips between Lagos and Ibadan, and at the same time assist in moving containers from the port to Ibadan to Abeokuta. But while we start on Monday, we tend to stop at Abeokuta and Lagos because the stations are still to be completed. And they are promising us that 6 of the stations will be completed by the end of January. That's the contractor, while the mega stations will be completed in February. So we are not accepting that. We are still putting pressure. The minister is coming back on the 19th again to ensure that, see what they can do to ensure that it's completed. While we are doing this, the reconstruction and realignment of the Port Harcourt to Maiduguri has been signed, $3.2 billion contract, and it will be extended to Owerri. There's no track in Owerri presently, but and also we have what they call the rail, the rail is going to be an industrial park somewhere in Port Harcourt, and will be connected to Bonny. But while in the north, Damaturu and all those state capitals will be linked to the track. And from Kamfanchan to Kaduna, where we have the junction, there is a place called Rigachuku. We are going to have the transplant yard, a big factory, where the narrow gauge wagons can be moved to standard gauge and standard gauge moved to narrow gauge. Why are we doing that? Because to do a standard gauge, the contract awarded is about $13 billion from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri, which is going to take a lot of time because of funding at the time we are now. In order not to leave that as is of Nigeria, not to enjoy the rail service, the government looked backward and said, okay, what will it take to upgrade, remove the curves, reduce the gradient, so that instead of running 30 kilometer, 40 kilometer, you can at least upgrade to 80 kilometer per hour. We came up about this, and the Chinese company is ready to come in and do it and operate it as a means of misconcession, so that they can recover the money.
Yes, talking about money now, funding is a key issue here. You've talked about these projects, and they're quite huge, you know. So where are we looking to source for funds to actually complete all of these projects?
Oh, we are looking everywhere. You see, what is important is that Nigerians should accept, are this infrastructure necessary? Do we have it now? Do we need to postpone it to another day? Personally, I would want to have it and enjoy the service of a good rail infrastructure in Nigeria. And when you do that, the next government or the next generation will not be thinking of that. They will be thinking of something else. Whereas you get the benefit of having good rail, your road will last longer. And so if we can get the fund source, either in Europe, America, or China, Hong Kong, anywhere, I think it's better. As far as we know, we are not shooting ourselves, and we are not giving us our birthright. So the economic experts will look at it and ensure we are getting value for money, and what we are doing, that we are not selling our soul or spirit. And that's what is, for me, as a Nigerian, that's important. We need the infrastructure right now. Yeah. So, but you see, in developed country, you say people give out money when they are not at work because they have the basic infrastructure in place that are running. But in a developing country where you don't have it, you are still struggling to have it.
I want to talk more about the issue of funding now. Do we actually, is there like a structure now as to where exactly these funds will be coming from, or we're still drawing up the plans on how these funds will come up? Are we taking loans, for instance?
Yeah, the best option now is to seek for loan, which, like when you take a project and it's approved, and I say, okay, Minister of Finance, how do you fund it? They said that you get the Nigerian economy to fund it, or you borrow. So they weigh the option. Are you getting me? So the government is quite desirous to have the infrastructure in place. If the money was there, I don't think we'll be looking to borrow, because I know this money, if I have 100,000 in my pocket, whether I like it or not, I will not go back home with it by the time I leave office, because you have different people coming for it. So also it affects the country. There are many people sourcing for this money, whether for basic amenities, whether for leisure. I think right now the government is concentrating on infrastructure, which is the amenities, which is better for, because if they are in place, leisure will definitely come. So I think for the best option we have now to see a better way of getting a friendly country to give us loan without a cutthroat conditionality. So I think that is the way to go for now.
Now, let's talk about when, of course, these projects are completed now. What will be the cost implications? That's for the passengers. How affordable will these train services be?
It's going to be affordable because before we fix any price in the rail, the law, IS and MD cannot just fix the price. You have to go through the board, go through the ministry, and eventually the president will approve. And the president will have, like last time we want to increase Abuja, we were saying we have a coach that takes only 24 people. And as a rail, we said, okay, we will divide a rail that carries 68 people, for instance, should be able to also generate the 24-seater, should also earn that amount, that the 68-seater. So that's how we worked it out. But the president, in his grace, said, no, it's too much. We have to come down. So for that, it's 6,000, Abuja, Kaduna. And the same thing will be applicable Lagos, Ibadan. Maybe 6,000, 7,500. I think that's the working they are doing right now. And there is no way we can price the road. We should be lower than the road because the government also play a part in providing the infrastructure, or like the road that is fully private. We are providing service, and Nigeria has to benefit from it.
Oh.
So that is the way I want to put it. The price structure for the fare is quite going to be, the people will like it.
All right, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Now, regarding the suspension of rail services at the Apapa port, of course, you touched a little about it now, but let's just dwell more. The initial 2-month suspension of the movement of containers has been extended. So when are operations likely to resume then?
So we are hoping that in January we will be able to come back. Why? Because the material needed for moving, what we are having in Apapa now, we are using the same the right of way for the narrow gauge. We have to shift the narrow gauge. And we said, if you are moving the narrow gauge, it has to be fresh and new. And for us to do that, we have to get the materials. So we have some materials from Port Harcourt that we are now moving down. There was, because of logistics and all those ones, there's a delay in moving the rail and sleepers from Port Harcourt, which had to be used to link the Apapa port. As at yesterday, they have loaded 6 trailers, and we hope once those items arrive, the formation and everything has been done, laying track within the next 2 weeks, they will finish. That's why I'm thinking by January, first week of January, we should be able to start moving from the port.
Now, we haven't had much regarding plans to have cargo rails for movement of products. Are there no plans to actually reduce the heavy dependence on road haulage? We see the number of accidents almost on a daily basis on these roads.
So that's why we're saying you have to have what we call the permanent way, functional and reliable, which we are trying to build now. So we were moving containers before we stopped, and people would attest to that. Right now that we are building, we have to give way. For you to give birth, there should be blood. People put pressure on me. Why can't you manage? No, it's not. For us, we have to give this 2-3 months to give way to reconstruct so that we have better service. If you have a good rail service, the driver flogging trailer from here to Sokoto is not necessary. But they will still make their money. That where the rail ends, they will take it. We don't go to the doorstep of the industry or our customers. And instead of, you see stress of drivers, stress on the road. Rail is designed to move heavy axle to go long distance. So with the standard gauge, we can move 30 containers with 1 train. We can move 30 tankers of fuel on 1 train. And if you deliver that in a day to Kano, there will not be scarcity. In the east, there will not be scarcity. And train service is quite safe, secured. You don't have that problem when a driver goes by the road because he's hungry. He will drain some. It doesn't happen on rail service or your goods missing. If you move, let's say, 30 wagons on a train, you only pursue 1 person. But if you move 30 trailers, you are pursuing 60 people. The driver, the guards, they will get to Ore and say they are puncture tired, exhaust have problem, they have complaint to tell you. So, but on the train, you are only facing 1 person. And you can sleep. and be at peace. But when we now deliver, the road, the trailers can take it maybe 100 kilometers, 80 kilometers, all right, only 1,000 kilometers they do now presently. And our roads, you don't need to be maintaining them every year. So that if you input those things to Naira and Kobo, you see the advantage of having a functional rail. As I tell people, if London is not serviced by rail, you don't talk about even car moving, even foot. You cannot move by foot.
So right now, are there actually plans to set all of these in motion?
Yeah. Right as we speak, we have 9 freight locomotives that have already arrived. And what we call shunting, the one that will be in the port moving up and down, not running, 2 of them has also arrived. We are spending 280 wagons for freight that has been ordered. And part of those wagons, about 60% of them, will be assembled in Nigeria, a place called Papalanto, that workshop, wagon workshop. That is how the contract was designed. So that we have locomotive freight wagons to move the freight.
So is there like a time frame which to
No, if
expect
not for
completion?
COVID, at least it should have been on ground now. If not for COVID. As I said, out of the 20 locomotives for freight, 9 are already in the port.
All right, now, earlier on you touched on security, so I'd like to dwell a bit more on that now. Of course, there had been some security concerns about the Abuja to Kaduna rail line, for instance. What is the NRC actually doing to ensure the security of commuters, especially during this period of the Yuletide?
Okay. I don't want to be funny. Every night and morning I pray I should be safe and Nigerians to be safe. I don't pretend to be a security expert, but rail expert, I've never had where a rail has been attacked.
But there were reports of attack on the Abuja-Kaduna rail line some time ago.
You've heard of it. I've never heard of it. You hear, that is rumor, what Trump will call fake news. It has not been established. So if you are referring to recent this thing that a train failed, I apologize personally, and the minister also apologized for that. As a mechanical equipment, I'm an engineer by training and by practice, by education and everything. When you have a failure happening in 5 years, one off, I think we should clap for ourselves. I've been on a train that I missed my flight from Heathrow to central of London, and I was there for 4 hours because you are not allowed to even come down to say you want to take alternative. And when we have that failure last week, you cannot just send another relief. You have to make sure all possible security, because there was another train coming from Rigasa, and we are running a one-track system. The signaling and communication must be ensured that you don't go out to avoid collusion. That one running must be clear before you send another one in. That is the program. But however, I apologize to Nigerians. We will try and work hard to ensure such things that never happen. People say new loco, new this. How did they know it was a new locomotive? New locomotive had problem. We stopped that. We called the manufacturer, and they were rectifying that. We sent our old one, and our old one had issue, which is not supposed to happen. And we still ran the number of trains that was supposed to run that day, a day after, until today. So I think Nigerians should learn to appreciate people that are working hard.
All right, Managing Director of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, Mr. Fides Okere, thank you for coming on the program this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
We'll be talking commodities when we return in just a moment. Please stay with us. A research analyst at the financial derivatives company, Bolanle Agbaji, joins us now to talk us through this morning's burning economic issues at the domestic commodities markets. Good morning, Bolanle. Thank you for coming on the program.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, I'm sure you heard my conversation with the MD of the Nigerian Railway Corporation now, but let me ask you, what do you think will be the impact of better functioning railways on commodities?
So first of all, we're obviously looking at, the impact of railways on, the economy, the people within the economy, consumers, manufacturers, and the general and the government as well. First of all, it's important to know that in an industrialized society, it doesn't make sense if you don't have, another form of transport, which is rail. it's a long time coming. I know we had it a few years back, but, it wasn't maintained properly. And obviously, we got to a situation where there was now over-dependence on, road transportation. But in a society where, you have economic activity booming, you obviously need to have, another form of transportation, which is rail. So it's great news that, the new rail line is coming to play on Monday, like he mentioned. And obviously, looking at the impacts, we focused on like 5 areas. One, and the most important, will be the logistics costs, which, we've come here numerous times talking about, inflation numbers going up. Recently, we found out that, it's more or less from the supply side rather than from the demand side of things. And when we looked at some, some companies, Dangote and the likes, Guinness and some other manufacturing companies, and focused on their logistic costs, in their financial statement. And we realized that, well, Dangote, which is, the biggest manufacturing company in Nigeria at the moment, we saw that, logistic costs had increased significantly, over the past 9 months. And this plays a significant impact on consumer prices as well. So, so definitely when you have another alternative, which is rail, then it means that, we should see a decline in logistic cost, and which should translate into lower commodity prices, which obviously moves me on to, the impact on commodity prices in general. We've seen that, inflation numbers have been climbing significantly for the past few months, and we do hope that this new rail line would, positively impact, the commodity prices going forward, at least in the new year. And when it also comes to real estate as well, real estate plays an important role when it comes to the rail line, because you have a lot of people that are living on the outskirts of Lagos, trying to obviously work within the Lagos metropolitan city, but they cannot necessarily afford to live in these areas. So it means that, when a new project like this would mean that, they can possibly live in places like Abeokuta, Ibadan, and easily transport themselves to Lagos, to and fro, which should take only about an hour, and this would also improve the productivity of these workers, and also even the standards of living. And also talking about, tax revenue as well, it would obviously improve the level of state revenue in places like Ogun State and Ibadan. And it will make sense, because when you live in places like that, or states like that, you have more peace of mind. The whole, traffic jam and all of that you see in Lagos should obviously ease the tension. So those are the areas or the impact of this new rail line on the economy.
So it would actually go a long way in easing a lot of the challenges that many people are currently facing.
Definitely, yes. It's something that, it's been a long time coming, and we'll definitely see the positive multiplier effect on, certain areas of the economy. And also, we also talk about the BRT, the transport lines. Transport fares had increased significantly, about 73%.
That's huge.
Huge, from the COVID lockdowns to the EndSARS lockdown as well. That had even doubled the prices of transport fares. So this alternative rail line would obviously ease out the pressure on, or the demand for other transport fares, like transport alternatives like buses and, taxis and the likes.
And what about the effects of the recent increase in the price of petrol as well?
Oh, yes. So obviously, using rail as an alternative, it's more efficient. So the pressure and the demand for, using like if I use myself as an example, if I would, normally drive from, say, Mowe to the Lagos metropolitan city to work, now that this rail line has come into play, I would obviously look at the alternative of, saving cost, improving my disposable income in any sense, and, focusing on the alternative options. And it will also mean that, I can live in other areas and boost my standard of living as well.
All right, now let's shift gears to talk about oil prices. Now, of course, we see them down this morning. Brent crude is trading at about $47 per barrel as at this morning, and that's amid uncertainty yesterday about whether OPEC Plus will agree to extend a large output cut talk this week. But what's the implication of this, especially on Nigeria? We like to always tie it to how it affects us.
Yes, so currently our budget benchmark for the 2020 budget is about $30 per barrel. So what this means is that, you know, at oil trading at about 47, we still have a lot of headroom. But going forward into the 2021 budget, where you have a budget benchmark of about $40 per barrel, then it calls to situation what the average, you know, oil price would be for the year. But I think the reason why, you know, OPEC Plus are still conflicted is because of the vaccine news. You have some countries that are extremely optimistic and wondering why they should continue the output cuts. And also, you have other countries that are less optimistic about, you know, the vaccine. Because technically, when you have the news of the vaccine, it will obviously take some time before it can be felt in the economy. Demand pressures having been, you know, pulled up. You've seen a lot of countries that have gone back into lockdown. So, you know, I'm sure they're taking time to deliberate on the issues because it's quite sensitive. It's detrimental to the, you know, revenues of some of these countries. So I'm sure they're probably, you know, wondering what oil prices would trade at or what it would possibly be going forward.
Well, where do you see prices trading in the coming days?
Well, we do expect prices to trade between $48 to $50 per barrel, just because we're also optimistic about the vaccine news as well. And obviously, the signal effect would definitely drive up prices. And obviously, looking at the future as well, or future prices, we do know that once you have this kind of news of the vaccine, it means that going forward or in the nearest future, we should expect demand for oil, especially from China as well. China's recovery has played a huge, you know, impact on the recovery that we've seen so far.
Well, Bolande, let me just pick your brain a bit.
Yeah.
If oil prices actually go up to as much as $48 to $50 per barrel, won't that mean another impending increase in the pump price of petrol in Nigeria, going by what the Minister of State had said?
Yes, just because, you know, it's been deregulated now. So it definitely means that, you know, the cost of importing or refined fuel will be more expensive. And I don't think the government is looking towards, you know, helping or subsidizing this particular cost. So it definitely means that we should expect, you know, prices of fuel to increase in the near term if that happens. But at the same time, we've talked about this rail situation as well. I'm sure people would find better alternatives to transport themselves. And, you know, the 117 naira per litre that we are seeing so far, it seems like people have suddenly adjusted to it. Cars are still moving, you still have traffic jam, everybody is still going by their business. Of course, their disposable income has decreased, but somehow in Nigeria, we find a way to just, you know, keep
Nigerians
moving.
are very resilient people.
They are, definitely.
Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room back home now, and that's talking about the high forex rate. That has been one issue. We've seen the naira fall sharply to about 500 naira to the dollar at the parallel market. Bolandi, it's taken its toll on the price of imported items already. This is a Yuletide. This is a festive season. Normally, you'd have a lot of importers or retailers doing sales, but a lot of them are complaining that this time around it's really tough.
Exactly. Well, the IMF has called that, you know, we should have devalued the currency and, you know, created a unified, you know, exchange rate a long time ago. And I think this is the negative implication of that, because you have in the black market taking advantage of, you know, this low supply of dollars. And that's what we had seen. But I'm sure the central bank is working tirelessly on ways to, you know, improve this dollar supply. And also, I think it's also because of the forex rationing that they have been, or the program they have been, you know, carrying out so far. And that has put significant pressure on the dollar. But we don't see any good news regarding the exchange rate coming so far. But in case the oil prices, you know, moves, you know, in the right direction in the near term, that should obviously increase our external reserves and our dollar inflow, and that should increase supply. So I think that's the only way that we can possibly affect, you know, our exchange rates. And this time around, I don't see diaspora remittance increasing as much, because everybody's trying to, you know, remain low-key. Nobody wants to contract the COVID, you know, virus. So the supply has obviously declined from there.
Now, let's talk about another issue now. That's the fact that the World Bank is providing 20% grants to finance retail cost of Nigeria's solar power home system. So how much of a relief will this be, looking at the state of electricity supply in the
It
country?
will definitely be a huge relief. We've seen, power supply remain stagnant for a few months now. And I think, was it yesterday or Sunday that we saw the news of the power grid in Kaduna and Eco Distribution, company. When you have things like that, you obviously need to have an alternative, so the dependence on these power grids is huge, and it's not, benefiting us in the long run. But I saw that, it seems like each household would have to pay about 4,000 naira, per month to contribute to the solar power system. And I think that's good comparing to, what each person would have been paying when it comes to, the current power supply that we're using at the moment.
All right, now let's talk about cocoa prices. They are up about 10%. What's actually fueling the increase?
Well, there's increased demand for cocoa around the world, but at the same time, we've seen a conflict between cocoa producers and cocoa processors, just because, the increase in prices that Ghana and Ivory Coast had come together to implement. Some of these cocoa processors are not so happy with it, so they're looking for ways that they can avoid this. But in any case, what we see is that this incremental prices, is supposed to benefit the farmers, the cocoa farmers that do not, gain as much when it comes to, cocoa production. But generally, during this time, when it comes to, the festive season, we definitely see increased demand for cocoa products. And particularly in Nigeria, cocoa production is this season of cocoa production is supposed to increase to about 300,000 tons, which is huge. And we had seen increase in prices as well in Oyo, Ondo. Those are the major cocoa producing states. Prices had increased to over 1 million naira per metric ton, which is significant. So if we've always mentioned the government focusing on, other ways apart from oil, to increase the possible revenue they could be getting from it. And when you talk about the dollar scarcity as well, these are the initiatives that if they had invested in those aspects in the past, we should be reaping the benefits of that at the moment.
Well, let's broaden the conversation now to agri-commodities, the price of agri-commodities as we speak. Where are we in terms of prices?
Well, within the economy, prices are relatively high. We don't see them coming down anytime soon.
And that's not good
Not
news.
in the first quarter, at least. We do expect that, changes within the logistics aspects of, supply. But at the same time, you also have the attacks in the northern region, and a large percentage of our agricultural products do come from that, side of the country. And I think farmers now are scared of, going into the farms to do what they do best. But definitely, I don't think we should see agricultural prices, decline so soon.
And then you talk about consumer spending. Of course, we know that before now, every year it seems it keeps taking the nosedive, and then this year is definitely not an exception.
For example, even the gifts that companies usually give, their staff within their economy, within their companies, some of them have cut that down by, a half, because they cannot afford to satisfy everybody with the same way they used to do in previous years. So we've seen changes like that. Most people are cutting down on, what they do, the kind of parties they organize, the kinds of celebrations that and not just because of the prices of some of these commodities, but as well as, the COVID situation that we're seeing at the moment. So like I mentioned, inflation now we've seen, due to the fact that, core inflation is much higher than headline inflation, which suggests that, we do not, the demand side of things is not what's driving inflation. It's more or less the supply.
All right, Bolanle I was just going to call you Bolanle Olutosi. Bolanle Agbaje, research analyst at the FDC. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
We'll be right back in just a moment. Stay with All right, now let's see how the local stock markets performed on Monday, which happened to be the last traded day in the month of November. Now, the market actually ended in the green, and that came amid a mixture of profit-taking and some bargain hunting. Now, this means that the bull maintained its dominance at the market for a better part of the month of November. But yesterday, we saw intense sell pressure on the banking sector, which was down 2.49%, as well as the industrial and consumer goods counter. The 0.45% increase in the all-share index was largely driven by the 53 Naira 5 kobo increase on the share price of Airtel Africa, and MTN Nigeria also added much support to the gain recorded on Monday's session. But let's speak with the head securities dealing at APT Securities and Funds, Mr. Mohammed Kayode, for more details of what shaped yesterday's trading. Good morning, Mr. Kayode. Thank you for joining us on the program. Now, can you just give us a brief overview of what we saw at the markets yesterday?
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you. What happened yesterday is replica of what we have been experiencing for about 5 consecutive trading days, and that is not unconnected with what happened about a week or 2 weeks ago. You know, then when market was put on a circuit breaker, aftermath of that one, the market corrected itself. Then later, the speculator took over the market and trying to take the advantage, and they took profit within that period of time. So after that time, we now experience a situation whereby there is a kind of cautious trading between the speculator and also the investor. So what we have yesterday is a replica of what we have been having for about 5 trading days.
So is that trend likely to continue today?
Yes, the trend is likely to continue today, even throughout this week, that we are going to have marginal gain for the period.
So what's the market looking like at the moment? Are we already on that path?
As we have now, market is already on that path too. Market has gained around 0.34%. Just like yesterday, we have 0.45%. So we're expecting the market to continue to behave in this manner for now, where we have a cautious trading pattern within the participant in the market, and also we have low volatility in the market for now, pending the time we saw we saw a kind of rebound from the market. But we are going to experience it for now like this, that we are going to be having marginal gain. We have about marginal gain within the trading period.
Now, let's not forget, today, it's a new month, the month of December. Now, are we likely, what's your outlook for the rest of the month?
You know, in the month of December, we have a Santa Claus rally that we used to enjoy, but that always comes between the middle of the month towards the end of the month. So, early December that we have now, we expect that the trend should continue now. Until that time, we have that rally that we saw. Is a normal, like a traditional something in the market, that towards the middle to the end of the market, we have a bullish market. And this is not connected with the fact that the fund manager has to rebalance their portfolio over that period, so that the portfolio will look good towards the end of the year. By the time they are doing the valuation of their portfolio, the portfolio will look good. So we are expecting that to happen, but it is not now. We believe that it's going to happen during the middle of the week towards the end of the middle of the month, move towards the end of the month.
All right, Head Securities dealing at APT Securities and Funds, Mr. Mohammed Kayode, thank you for speaking with us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, it will be time to check out what's happening in London as well as the debt and currencies markets when we come back shortly. To join us again. Juliana Olayinka joins us now from our London studio to discuss this morning's headlines coming from the UK. Good morning, Juliana. MPs are expected to vote on government's proposal for tougher tiers of COVID restrictions today. Any idea which direction the votes will swing?
Well, swing in the direction of the government, that's a guaranteed fact. However, there is growing rebellion from the backbenches, so Tory MPs that are not sitting in cabinet or in government, who represent constituents that will be going into tiers 2 or tiers 3 tomorrow after midnight, are really not happy. They're starting to question whether or not Boris Johnson's judgments are correct, given the fact that we were told we were going into this national lockdown to suppress the spread of the virus, and then there are so many regions, vast swathes of regions outside of London in the southwest that are going into a worse restriction than they were in the restriction. So we are expecting there to be a series of backlashes, which, of course, given the fact that Prime Minister Boris Johnson has a thumping majority of over 80, will cause him some serious worry as the time goes on, because once you break the whip, it's much easier to break the whip again. But it will pass. Sir Keir Starmer, the Labour leader, he said the Labour Party will abstain, but that they do back these restrictions in some shape or form, because they say some restrictions are better than other restrictions. So just to confirm, about 55 million people tomorrow, once the England national lockdown is lifted, will be going into these tougher restrictions, meaning in some places the hospitality and gyms will still be closed. You can only go there for takeaway, and you cannot mix outside your social bubble. There are some people that are saying that this is going far too far, and the scientific information doesn't back up the restrictions.
All right, Juliana. Now, social media giant Facebook has reached a deal to pay UK media millions of pounds each year to license their articles following government's crackdown over its dominance of online advertising. Kindly shed more light on this story, Juliana.
Well, there isn't much more to shed, really. We don't know how much Facebook is going to be paying out to these news outlets, but it's a long time coming. A lot of big media moguls, led by Rupert Murdoch, has been pretty outspoken about the fact that social media tech giants, mainly from Silicon Valley, so the likes of Twitter and Facebook, has been able to quite easily share news from major sites. And obviously, they're not paying for the news. And, you know, if you're a young person or somebody that doesn't watch news channels like channels, you are typically going to get your news from social media. So there has been a long debate about this. I believe this new system of Facebook paying for media outlets' content started off in America a couple of months ago. It will now be launching in the UK next year. Vogue, the Tatler Group, The Economist and other local and regional news outlets are signed up already. And this will be great for them because, of course, advertising revenue has been plummeting, especially since social media giants have been sharing news. So this is a long way forward. And I think really in terms of the long game for Facebook, I believe they want to show the British government that they are willing to share a piece of the pie if regulations favour them.
All right, just before you go, Juliana, tell us, what's this news about Chancellor Rishi Sunak's wife owning part of a firm that funneled money through Mauritius?
Well, we've got to be careful about this story involving Akshata Murthy. One of the reasons why is because obviously she's a public official's wife, and it has nothing to do with the public official, that being Chancellor Rishi Sunak. Akshata is from a very wealthy family. She lives in the UK. In fact, there has been a couple of stories trolling her recently. One of them from the Daily Mail, which is a very polarising, popular news site based in the UK, saying that she's richer than the Queen. She is from a wealthy Indian family, and I believe her own worth is over £500 million. The Guardian newspaper, which is a left-leaning newspaper in the UK, so typically they always go against the government, and they have been doing a series of investigations about Chancellor Sunak and his links with his family and wealth. And now today they've reported their findings about International Market Management, which is an umbrella company that looks after franchises of restaurants in India, and they have several key franchises under their business. Rishi Sunak's wife owes a percentage in that company. I believe it's about 5%, so you can see how minimal her relation to this company is. And they have said apparently that money through that company passes through Mauritius, which is known as a tax haven, particularly for people in India. But this hasn't been picked up by mainstream news here. These are all allegations. I'm not certain whether the Guardian newspaper has reached out to Rishi Sunak's wife. So this has got nothing to do with the Chancellor. This is to do with the Chancellor's wife. So whether or not this is in the public interest is down to the public, really.
Absolutely, Juliana. Thank you, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Of course, we'll see you again at 1:30.
Thank you.
And back home, the chief dealer, fixed income and FBN Quest Merchant Bank, Ramat Baba, joins us now to review the fixed income market. Good morning, Ramat. Thank you for joining us on the program. Can you quickly talk us through yesterday's activities at the fixed income space?
Good morning. So there hasn't really been much activity. The treasury market is seeming like it's almost frozen. Not much demand creeping is coming into the market anymore. In the bond space, we saw a bit of demand, but of course there were also a few offers. So it's really a mix, and overall yields actually remained flat in both the treasury bills and the bond space yesterday. And to be honest, we actually think that might be what we'll see for the rest of the week, as things start coming to a halt towards the end of the year.
All right, so it's a new month, Ramat. What are your expectations as dealers for the month?
We expect yields to remain at probably same levels. We don't expect to see so much activities as some businesses start closing down for the year. There might be a bit of demand, but then again, there might be some profit takers coming to sell off and probably just move on as they wind down their positions for the rest of the year. Overall, like I said earlier, we don't think there should be anything changing from what the status quo is now. It should just be same activities, people closing out, managing their books, and that's it for the rest of the year.
All right, Chief Dealer, Fixed Income and FBN Quest Merchant Bank, Ramat Baba, thank you for sharing some of your time with us this morning.
You're welcome.
And that's where we end today's program. Thank you for watching. I am Bisi Adebayo.